The sound of metal on metal echoed through the empty hallway as I inserted my key into the door, hesitated, and stopped breathing for a second. There was light leaking from the crack beneath my apartment door, warm, yellow light I never left on. My hands trembled, not because of fear, but because my instincts whispered something was wrong. I pushed the door open quietly. The smell of jasmine and burnt coffee mixed in the air, a strange combination that didn't belong to me. Then I saw it, my family sitting around my living room, laughing as if they owned the place, my younger brother, my aunt, and my cousin, and in front of them on the coffee table was my black company laptop. Open, unlocked, the folder titled BWF glowed faintly on the screen. It stood for Basic Work Files, the one I was never supposed to let anyone outside the department access. Laila, you're home early. Aunt Roxana said, wiping cookie crumbs off the table, her voice sugary but laced with something colder beneath. What are you doing? I asked, keeping my tone steady though I could feel my pulse in my throat. Relax, my cousin Sana giggled. We were just looking at your little work secrets. She turned the laptop toward me. A spreadsheet filled with numbers, locations, and what looked like codes flashed before my eyes. They didn't know what they were looking at, but I did, and if anyone else saw this, the consequences wouldn't stop at me. I told you not to touch anything in here. I whispered sharply, but they didn't care. My brother leaned back on the couch, crossing his legs arrogantly. Laila, you act like you're some spy. It's just work files, basic work files. Chill. The irony of that phrase, basic work files, burned in my chest. I was technically just a data analyst, but the project I was assigned to was under contract with the Department of Homeland Security. I had signed NDA so thick they might as well have been chains. I stepped forward slowly, like approaching a ticking bomb. Close it now, Aunt Roxana narrowed her eyes. Why are you being so dramatic? If there's nothing to hide, then what's the problem? I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Every nerve in my body screamed to keep calm. To breathe, to think. I closed the laptop, clutching it tightly against my chest, because, I finally said, voice shaking, you just opened something you had no right to touch. For a moment, the room fell silent. Then Sana laughed again. What's the worst that can happen? The government will knock on our door. And then, as if the universe decided to mock me, a faint buzz vibrated through my phone. It was a secure alert, one I'd only received once before during a cyber breach drill. Security breach detected. Level 4, my blood turned to ice. I stared at the notification, at my family's oblivious faces, at the laptop that was now the center of something far bigger than they could comprehend. I couldn't tell them the truth, not yet, but the sound of my heartbeat grew louder, echoing in my ears. Something irreversible had just begun, and they had no idea. Laila, my brother said, frowning. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Because I had, a ghost with a badge. I turned away from them, locking the laptop, my hands slightly sweaty. You need to leave, I whispered, right now. Sana rolled her eyes. God, you're overreacting. But they didn't know the alert I just received meant Homeland Security now had their IP address, and within hours, maybe minutes, they'd be knocking on this very door. As I stood in the middle of the living room, my past choices and my family's carelessness collided like two trains. Somewhere deep inside, a crack formed, between trust and blood. This was no longer just about work. This was about survival. The first knock wasn't loud. It was firm, like the kind that doesn't ask to enter. It informs you it's already here. My aunt jumped, my brother froze, and Sana finally lost the smirk she'd been wearing like cheap perfume. Who's that? She whispered. I didn't answer. My body moved on autopilot, laptop under my arm, phone clenched in my hand. My mind replayed the alert again and again like a stuck record. Level 4, another knock. Harder, Laila Khan, a man's voice called out, deep, professional, no accent, no warmth. Department of Homeland Security, opened the door. Aunt Roxana's face went pale. My brother's jaw dropped. What the hell, Laila? Sana backed away from the door like it might explode. I walked slowly toward it, each step heavy as lead. My pulse pounded in my ears, my throat dry as dust. When I opened the door, they were there, 4 of them. Dark suits, earpieces, ID badges hanging like weapons. Behind them, black SUV lined the curb like silent predators. Ma'am, the lead agent said, we need to talk. the living room filled with the smell of their presence, sterile, sharp, like freshly cleaned gunmetal. "May we come in?" he asked. I didn't have a choice. They moved with surgical precision. One agent walked straight to the router, another to the laptop. Two more positioned themselves between my family and the door. "What is happening?" Aunt Roxana screamed. "We didn't do anything." The lead agent ignored her, his eyes fixed on me. "Miss Khan, our systems detected unauthorized access to restricted files through your company terminal. Do you confirm that access originated from this location?" "Yes." I breathed, but it wasn't. Then who? I turned to my family. They looked small now. My brother's bravado melted. Sana's sarcasm vanished. They didn't know what they were opening. I said, the words tasting like blood on my tongue. The agent's jaw tightened. "Ignorance doesn't clear liability, Miss Khan. You're responsible for any breach from your system." One agent held up my laptop, already secured in an evidence bag. "It's all here," he said. "Agent Collins," the lead said, "secure the network." Panic exploded in the room like a grenade. My aunt started crying. My brother tried to talk his way out of it. "Look, man, we didn't know. We thought it was just spreadsheets." The agent turned to him, voice flat. "Sir, do you realize those spreadsheets contain classified movement schedules?" My brother's mouth went dry. I clenched my fists. They didn't know. They never listened when I told them my work wasn't some little office job. I was the quiet one, the obedient one, the one they thought they could walk over. Now their ignorance was about to cost me everything. "Miss Khan," the agent said, pulling me from my thoughts, "you're coming with us for questioning." Sana gasped. No, she didn't do anything. But my eyes burned with something new, not fear, not just yet, something hotter, rage. They had opened something they shouldn't have, and now I was the one paying for it. The cold night air slapped me as they led me to the SUV. My wrists weren't cuffed, but the invisible weight of their authority felt heavier than any steel. My family stood on the porch, pale and shaking. As the door shut behind me, I caught one last glimpse of them. My family, my blood, my betrayers. The engine started, and I realized something. This wasn't the end. The interrogation room was colder than I imagined. A single metal chair, a buzzing fluorescent light overhead. The walls seemed to lean in like silent witnesses. Agent Collins sat across from me, expression carved from stone. "You understand the severity of this breach, Miss Khan?" "Yes," I replied. My voice was steady now, iron under silk. "You're lucky this is a level 4 and not level 5. That would have been federal detention." I forced a breath. "I didn't open those files, my family did. And your family lives here under your roof on your network, with your credentials." Every word hit like a hammer. But as the questioning went on, something unexpected happened. The fear began to fade. I knew my work, I knew the system, and I also knew exactly how the breach happened. Line by line, IP by IP, they were careless. But I wasn't. Check the session logs, I said, surprising even myself with how calm I sounded. "You'll see the unauthorized access came from a non-privileged account. The encryption held, nothing critical left the system." Agent Collins raised an eyebrow. He didn't expect me to fight back. 2 hours later, they confirmed it. The breach was contained, no sensitive data was leaked, but the case wasn't closed. "Your clearance remains under review," Collins said, "and there will be consequences for the unauthorized parties involved." My family. When they finally let me go, it was nearly dawn. The sky was bruised pink and gray. I walked home with my fists tight in my coat pockets, my breath visible in the cold. They were waiting for me, my aunt pacing, Sana crying, my brother silent for once. "Laila, we're so sorry," Sana whispered. "Sorry?" I laughed, a bitter, sharp sound that even surprised me. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "We didn't know," Aunt Roxana pleaded. I dropped the security notice on the table like a gavel. "You never know. You never listen. You think I'm just some quiet little girl behind a desk. You think you can invade my space, my work, my life, because I won't fight back." Their faces told me everything. They didn't see me as me, just as the family's good daughter, the safe one, the one they could use, not anymore. I looked at them with a calm that felt like steel sliding into place. "Homeland Security will be interviewing each of you. You'll have your own files now. Congratulations." Sana's tears flowed harder. My brother looked away. Aunt Roxana finally sat down as if the weight of reality had finally crushed her. But the shift had already happened inside me. They broke the illusion. And I wasn't going to fix it for them. In the weeks that followed, investigations ran their course. They were reprimanded, fined, put on federal watch lists. I was suspended, but not fired. I proved my innocence. And in that time I rebuilt, quietly, stronger, alone. My family begged for forgiveness, but trust wasn't a light switch you flipped back on. It was glass, and they'd shattered it. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, I stood by my window holding a letter. It was from the department, clearance reinstated, promotion recommended. I exhaled slowly. The world outside looked different now, colder, sharper, but it was mine. I finally understood that family isn't always the people who share your blood. Sometimes they're the ones who respect your walls. And as for the ones who broke mine, well, they'd learned what happens when you open the wrong folder. I turned off my phone, locked my door, and for the first time in years, slept without fear. Because they thought they had power over me, but in the end, I was the one who walked out stronger.